Welcome to the Element of Success podcast, where we will explore specific traits that break down barriers between you and success. We will achieve this by bringing on guests so that they can share their stories. Today, we're joined with my co-host, Eric Johnson, and we're going to be talking about why I decided to create the Elements of Success podcast for our first episode. So, Eric, welcome aboard.
Thanks, man. I'm so excited to be a part of this. Just knowing your story and getting to know you as much as I have, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited, I think that the ultimate goal here is to be able to create some sort of synergy around the different elements that we're going to pick out and bring on guests and share those elements through success stories. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I guarantee it. And I know today's episode is going to be a little bit different. This is really kind of the formation of what gave you this idea, right? I mean, this is on your heart, this is on your mind, and You've had a ton of success and a lot of struggles in your life, and you've shared some of those with me. And I want to tell the audience right up front, he's got a TikTok. I subscribed to his TikTok already. In fact, a lot of our team did, so that'll be fun.
That's funny. Yeah. My TikTok's Johnny.Wayne for those that are listening. So feel free to go send me some love over there, because we'll be sharing snippets of our podcast on our TikTok and Instagram and all that fun stuff as well.
Right on.
And you're absolutely right. The first episode, I'm digging in the hole a little bit here and bringing out some past experiences and some adversities that probably I'm not too proud to talk about. But at the end of the day, it's really those life experiences that made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And really it all started in Kentucky. I am originally from northeastern Kentucky, a place called Butcher Holler. It's spelled hollow, but it's pronounced holler for those in Kentucky that are listening. Want to make sure I get that right. And typically where I'm from, coal mining country, people don't necessarily make it out of there. They kind of get trapped, per se. And in fact, Butcher Holler may sound familiar to a lot of people listening, because that's a famous country star by the name of Loretta Lynn is from Butcher Holler. And I grew up literally a quarter mile down the road, down the dirt road from her cabin.
Wow.
And it takes me back a lot to remember a simpler time in life, but the memories that I have from there growing up in between two mountains wasn't great. My father, for instance, was a very prominent drug dealer, drug user in that part of the state. In fact, not a lot of 35-year-olds can say that their grandfather died from moonshining. Maybe their great-great-grandfather, but my grandfather passed away from moonshining during the 80s. And that's the type of area that I came from. And I can remember times in which I feared for my life at a very young age. One time specifically, my father drove me out to the middle of nowhere, and there was a house party going on, and I'll never forget it. And I was probably, I would say, 6 years old at the time, and he told me to stay in the car. And he went to the back of the car and pulled out the shotgun that it looked like the shotgun had been modified or whatever the case may be, and went into this house, and there was a house party, and I heard a couple shots. He came out, people were screaming. He got in the car, didn't say a word, and we went home. And that's my life experience at 6 years old. Another time that I can remember is often I would go home and be by myself or have a babysitter or things of that nature. And I remember getting home from school one time, and I was putting my book bag down, and my closet door started opening from the inside. So obviously someone was in the inside of the closet. So I literally just took off running out of the house. It was an apartment. So I took off running out of the apartment, ran to our neighbor's apartment, and explained what had happened. Well, they called the police, and the police came, and we went back into the apartment, and I showed them where it happened, and now the closet was fully open, and the window was opened. that wasn't previously open when I walked in the room.
Wow.
So someone was either there to cause harm to myself or rob us or whatever the case may be. And I just remember being at that young age, I really didn't understand what was happening or what the lifestyle we were living was. And that went on for some time. And in fourth grade, I remember like it was yesterday, I got home from school, walked off the bus. I asked my mom, I said, Mom, can I play for the elementary school basketball team that winter or fall? And she basically said, nope, get in the car, we're going to Ohio. And that was the last time I ever saw my biological father, was that moment. And in Kentucky, you learn what's called the 3 R's, which is reading, writing, and Route 23. And Route 23 is the highway that goes north and south through Kentucky into Ohio. And a lot of people, when coal mining shut down, a lot of people migrated north because that's where the manufacturing jobs were, and that's where they needed to build a life. And that's the road we took into Ohio. My grandparents at the time already lived in a place called Circleville, which is a little south of Columbus. And I started to go to school in Circleville at that time.
Now,
well, it wasn't
on, Johnny,
until
just a second. Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because here's the thing: is that you know a little bit about my story. My wife and I worked with children, at-risk youth, for years and years and years. Raised about 70 kids, right? And one of the things that you're telling me is that when you experience things at that young of an age, a lot of kids just believe that that's normal. Right. This is how life is. That's the only basis that you know of. That's the only example that you have. Right. So I mean, I think that maybe you'll get to this in your story, but that's what really kind of impacts me at this moment is that you were raised in a situation where that kind of thing, it was just kind of dismissed as that's how our life is, and you're probably thinking that, well, that's pretty much how everybody around the country lives. Right.
Wow. In fact, you know, on that point, it wasn't until I moved to Circleville that I figured out that writing doesn't start with an R. I've been lied to my whole life. and I'm like, wait a minute, it starts with a W. It doesn't start with an R.
Yeah.
And so yes, you're exactly right. Is up until that point, I thought this was normal. And with today's society and the racial tensions we had, where I'm from is not a very inclusive community. I mean, it's one road in, one road out. And I honestly, I never interacted with my first African-American friend until I moved to Ohio. I never even seen an African-American person until I moved to Ohio. And I'm going to talk more about this later down the road in different podcasts about how the Marine Corps really morphed my perspectives on life and how we're all into this together and we should all be inclusive of everyone who walks life together.
Yeah.
And really that's going to be the basis of our podcast, is sharing stories of how we can basically build off of each other for not only to be better ourselves, but to better everyone around us. And I think coming from a background to where I came from, if I am capable of living and growing up in that environment for that period of time, and I'm able to change my perspective on life, why can't millions of other people change their perspectives on life? We often get segmented into our own upbringings and our own mindsets.
Absolutely.
And like you said, we think it's normal. We think that is ultimately how life should be. And elements of success is to tell people that that's not how life needs to operate. There are particular traits we can leverage and utilize to be better than who we are. And it doesn't matter where you come from, you can always be better than who you are right now. All you have to do is apply yourself. And that's really what I want to teach people through this dialogue that you and I are going to create. So to get kind of back to this life story intro of why I decided to create Elements of Success, after we moved to Circleville, we we were lower middle class, if that. We grew up, my brother and I. So I was named after John Wayne. Again, this is telling of where I'm from. Named after John Wayne.
Nothing wrong with that.
The Duke, movie actor. Got some heat here recently. Got the airport, his name changed off of it, things like that. Well, my parents figured it was a great idea. Let's just name your little brother Jesse James. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no.
So, to give you an idea of really where I'm from, I'm named after John Wayne, and my little brother's named after Jesse James. And we were pretty well known for those names where I'm from.
Yeah.
So after coming to Ohio, it was a newer experience. I got to meet a bunch of new friends, and as you could tell, those that may notice, I do have a slight southern drawl. I just talk slower than most people, just a little bit. That was a good thing moving to Ohio because no one had a southern drawl. So it gave me instant popularity because I was different.
Yeah.
One of the things that looking back, moving to Ohio is my mom, being a single mom at the time, really struggled. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment most of the time before I graduated high school, and my little brother and I rotated on who slept on the living room floor and who slept on the couch. That's kind of the background that him and I come from. My mom did meet my stepfather, who's still my stepfather today. And he's been a tremendous father figure in my life growing up, and really what he taught me, because he was a carpenter, construction worker, still is today. He taught me that always work on your craft, and if your name's attached to it, you better do it right.
Yeah.
And that's really what he taught me. He never wanted anyone to question his carpentry skills. Mm-hmm. So when he went into a housing project or built a house or did a remodel, he wanted it to be the best that anyone has seen because his name was attached to it. And I learned a lot from him just on work ethic and because I think that's missing a lot today. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people want the microwave effect. They want it right now.
Yeah.
They want to have instant gratification immediately and just be ready to be successful overnight. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm here to tell you, anyone that works 10 years consistently for 12 hours a day, eventually they're going to look like an overnight success. The problem is people want it right away, so they quit immediately once they don't reach that success. And that's other things that we're going to get into, and that's what I'm excited about this podcast. So what really changed my life was 9/11. 9/11 severely changed my life, severely. And I remember watching the planes crash into the World Trade Center buildings. And
so what age are you at this point?
Yeah.
What age are you?
I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. I was in Mr. Hunter's English class. We were in the middle of an exam. And I remember we were taking a test, and he kind of chuckled at the back of the room. He was on his computer. And he chuckled, and he's like, "Oh, someone bombed the Pentagon," is what he said. And then about 5 minutes later, we had the big tube TVs that were on the carts, probably like what you had.
Yep.
And they wheeled the tube TV in our room, and we watched the news and literally watched live the second plane hit the towers. And at that point, I made a decision that I wanted to go in the military. Mm-hmm. I had no idea in high school what I wanted to do. I was a maybe C, D average student. And all of my friends, because again, I came popular, I think, through my accent, and I befriended a lot of popular kids that were wealthier than us, so they kind of brought me along. And all of my friends were talking to the counselor and figuring out what they're going to do for college and their next steps. I never had one discussion with any school counselor all through high school. They just didn't want to talk to me because they knew I probably wasn't going to college.
Yeah.
And I understand that, they wrote me off, didn't give me a shot, didn't want to talk to me about my goals or dreams, and that's okay. Sometimes we get wrote off without people really knowing who we are. Mm-hmm. And I think that creates a little bit of an internal fire inside of you to be better, right? Yeah. And I think it did affect me in high school because all of my friends were talking about which school they were going to. A lot of them were going to Ohio State, which is eventually where I graduated from anyway. But a lot of them were going to Ohio State right out of high school, and I wasn't having that conversation. So I decided the only way I'm going to make it to college is if I go in the Marine Corps. That was the only way. Mm-hmm. And I left for Marine Corps boot camp the exact same day as my high school graduation, the same evening. So I graduated from Circleville and was on a plane. This was the first time I've ever been on an airplane in my life, was going to Parris Island boot camp. Never been on a plane before that. And at 17 years old, I enlisted in the Marines, was in boot camp at 18 years old, and I signed up for the Marine Corps Infantry, so I was a very select few that decided I'm going to war. Like, I knew I was going to war. And when I decided to do that, went to boot camp, graduated top of my class, and then went to the School of Infantry, graduated top of my class there. And what I realized in the Marine Corps, and it's a trait that I think is very valuable and everyone should grasp onto, and it's effort. It doesn't matter where you are in your current stage of life, but if you just apply a little more effort than you currently are, you're going to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps really taught me that. Is I was able to train harder than the other guys that I was in the Marines with. I was able to outrun them, outwork them, and it was because I just pushed myself a little bit harder to be better. What I'm going to share in our first really dive into the first element that we're going to look at on the next podcast is how that effort really compounded over into teaching me about myself during war. Mm-hmm. You may see pictures behind me in the podcast, and those pictures are all reminders of war. Every one of those pictures aren't they are not in the United States. They're at different conflicts that I served in Iraq, being Haditha Dam, Battle of Fallujah, Ramadi. The list goes on, and I keep those as a reminder that every day isn't given, it's earned.
Yeah.
And sometimes at war, you've got to really push yourself to make sure your training and who you are is at the top of its peak, because if not, it's a life or death situation. Mm-hmm. And what I want to talk about on our next podcast and build upon these elements of success is going to be fear. And I think that's really the first element that we all really have to look at, because until you get over a fear of something, you can't go down and start creating other elements of success until you hurdle that fear. Because the fear is going to paralyze you into doing something you know you should be doing, but you can't because you're afraid to.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? For instance, today was a big day for me. Eric, I've talked to you for how long about this particular podcast, Elements of Success? A while.
Yeah.
And every time I get ready to do it or email you or call you to let's set this up and get going, I come up with an excuse not to do it. Why was I coming up with those excuses? It wasn't because I didn't want to do it. It was because I was afraid to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? Fear.
Nervousness, fear, all these little things just really can eat at us, right? And
right.
I hate it.
So
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great episode. I'm going to start bringing on a lot of guests to where we're going to be talking about how they've overcome not only their fears, but other elements of success that they've built into who they are to help anybody of any walk of life accomplish any goal that they may have.
Well, I think you'll agree that, I mean, I'm looking at the pictures right now because, we're on camera. And
yeah.
pretty much all those pictures back there are of multiple people, right? Mm-hmm. You've got people surrounding you that were part of your team, or whether you led that team or somebody else led that team, it was a team, right? And where you might have a moment of weakness in a certain specific thing, or you have a deficit in something, you have a teammate that's going to hold you up and going to help bolster that, right? And I think that's what all these guests are about as well. Is that it's not that we know it all, because we don't, and we can openly admit. In fact, if you talk to my wife, she'll tell you quite clearly, I don't know everything. So
yours too?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a common theme.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So the nice thing is that all these guests that you're going to be bringing on are going to bring their own story, their own successes, their own challenges, their own hurdles, the things that they did, and not everything's going to fit for every listener. But the beauty of it is that being able to pick and choose key pieces out of here to implement in my own life, I'm so excited to be on this journey with you. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I am.
It's going to be great. I'm excited too. And with that, the success that I've seen from creating multiple businesses, the real estate, to now I've gotten into angel investing and things of that nature. So I'm officially the first, officially the first millionaire net worth in our family. And that's someone who grew up in between two mountains in Kentucky and grew up with a very adverse lifestyle at the beginning years of my life. I personally, I wasn't destined to make it out of that situation. I just, that's not in the cards, and that your time spending with children, you see that over and over and over.
Yes.
My ultimate goal is I pray that a 16-year-old hears this podcast one day and they were in that situation I was, and they leverage what we are talking about to better themselves and to change their life course.
Yeah.
Because as I have 4 boys now, their life course is going to be changed. Their legacy is going to be changed because of the adversities I've gone through. And I feel like I have a platform now to share that through the elements of success.
Yeah, I think so. And the community that you're building here with this podcast, with this show, I think is going to be outstanding, because looking at community, I'm pretty sure you would probably agree, the community that you came from would have shamed you for wanting to do something different, would have shamed you or guilted you for wanting to leave the holla, if I'm saying that right.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Wait, this is so you're better than us now by leaving? And that's what we see so often, is that people try to hold each other down, because if they don't feel like they can make it, they don't want somebody else to make it, because then that shows them that they could have done something different. And it's a mentality that we have to break. Absolutely have to break.
Yeah. You know what's funny? You mentioned that, and I want to dive into it later on the episode. I'll give you a little sneak peek. I have the privilege and the honor of as a financial advisor, advising some top tier NFL players, and I have now befriended a lot of NFL players who come from inner city. They're African Americans. They grew up from the polar opposite atmosphere that I grew up in, right? And I've made a couple lengthy Facebook posts of my opinions and how the Marine Corps and knowing these particular individuals, how they have changed my life, how I feel for their circumstances, and I value their opinions and their struggles and their adversities. And I must have had 30 Facebook messages of people that I have known growing up that basically shamed me for voicing my opinion about it.
Yeah.
How could you do that? You're un-American. You're race baiting. And it's like, wait a minute. I didn't see you with any pictures on your wall overseas fighting for those same freedoms that they're leveraging. And that's, to me, we'll dive into it later down the road, but I think that what we're creating with this platform is going to be excellent, and I'm excited.
Me too. Fantastic.
So, well, I am truly privileged, Eric, to know you, to have you on as a co-host. I'm excited to bring in some guests. Some guests that we are going to be bringing in are guys like Braxton Miller, Ohio State Buckeye quarterback, NFL player. Him and I are really close friends. Also, Doug Ullman, who is the CEO of Pelotonia, which is one of the largest cycling events in the nation. And we're going to talk about how some adversities and what he's gone through. He's got a great life story, so I'm excited for that. And then we're going to continue to bring on more guests that we can share their stories to help others through the voice of podcasting, YouTubing, and video. So with that, we just want to thank you for listening to the Elements of Success. If you have not subscribed to the show, please subscribe now. And this is Johnny Dawson reminding you that as you look for your elements of success, you are not alone. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.